A new report shows that nearly 47,000 full-time jobs were lost last month in April, bringing unemployment to 6.9%, a six-month high. Former U.S. President Barack Obama arrived in Toronto to deliver a gala keynote address, and Poilievre's leadership is back in the hot seat as a couple challengers start to get some traction in conservative circles. You're going to want to stick around to the end of this video because we've got a couple interesting stories today for your Saturday Dominion Watch Report. The first story of the day is 46,700 full-time jobs were lost last month in April. Now that is a net 46,700 full-time jobs. So of the full-time jobs, that is a net. That's not accounting for ones that have been gained. So it's potentially more than that. Well, it would be more than that. But there were some job gains in the part-time sector, about 20,000. But even with that, it's still a net overall 18,000 jobs lost across Canada in every sector. But the reason I highlight full-time jobs is because full-time jobs are the jobs of people who have families to support. Nobody's really supporting a family on a part-time job. So that's a net loss of 46,700 jobs that people were using to support their families. These are jobs that maybe people have had for many years, whereas part-time jobs kind of tend to come and go for the most part as the holidays progress and as they're needed. Obviously there's exceptions, but that's sort of the general trend. But even still, the economy lost a net 17,700 jobs across the board. Analysts polled by Reuters had predicted a net gain of 15,000 jobs and an unemployment rate of 6.7%, which would have been equal to what it was when Trudeau resigned. But instead, we lost 17,000 jobs and unemployment has risen to 6.9%. So the current economy is actually underperforming what predictions said. So far in 2026, we have now lost 111,000 jobs just this year. Now, in slightly better news, average hourly wages of permanent employees grew 4.8% from a year earlier, as the BNN Bloomberg reports, citing the BOC. But it's still a tragedy that 46,700 full-time jobs have been lost. Of course, there's a few factors in this. I think the biggest one is the fact that Mark Carney has been unable to get a trade deal done with the United States. And this comes again after a committee testimony a couple weeks ago that I made a video about, basically stating that 2 million jobs in the auto manufacturing, just the manufacturing sector could be lost if Mark Carney doesn't get a trade deal done with the United States within the next couple of months. The facts are clear. It is time for Mark Carney to get a trade deal done with US President Donald J. Trump. Japan, the European Union, South Korea, Indonesia, the Philippines, Cambodia, Malaysia, Thailand and Vietnam, the United Kingdom, El Salvador, Argentina, Ecuador, and Guatemala, Switzerland. All of these countries have gotten a trade deal done with the United States. They've all sat down at the table with the big boys and they negotiated for lower tariffs. Why can't we? All of these countries have done that before Canada. The United States is historically closest ally. Why? Well, clearly it's not Trump's fault. He's willing to sit down with these countries. What are we doing here at home that's making that impossible? It probably has something to do with the elbows up rhetoric. Probably has something to do with Mark Carney's weird political chess, where if he does get a trade deal done, he fears he'll lose the elbows up liberals, and if he doesn't get a trade deal done, he fears that he will lose the business liberals. But he's going to have to make a decision, and the current one he's making is not to get a trade deal done. Months after the deadline, he said that he would, July 1st, I believe. So the facts are clear. It is time. But this leads me to our second story of today. Former U.S. President Barack Obama shows up in Toronto to give a keynote address at the Canada 2020 Gala. Of course, it's no secret that the U.S. and Canada were extremely close when he was president. He made 3 visits to Canada during his 8 years. First in 2009 with Stephen Harper, and then he met in Canada for the G8 and G20 summit meetings, and also the North American Leader Summit. this event will be his second time in Toronto. But I think it's interesting that when Mark Carney could be sitting down with the US president, or I believe at the very least be on the phone with him, he's meeting with a former president at a big fancy event in Toronto instead. Not to say that this isn't important for a prime minister to do, but but again, he should be on the phone with Donald Trump. That should be the priority right now. And this isn't me, again, this is not me coming from my conservative lens. This is me coming from someone who wants Canada to succeed. This is me coming from a place of wanting us to build this country strong, like Mark Carney says. And that starts with negotiating with the United States, actually sitting at the table, getting on the phone, and negotiating. But I look forward to seeing what Barack Obama has to say in Toronto. I'll probably watch the speech. And if anything interesting happens, I will keep you guys as informed as always. But don't click off just yet, because there's one more story for today. According to a recent article from the National Post, the buzz in conservative circles this week isn't about Pierre Poilievre. According to a recent Angus Reid poll, about 30% of conservative members, so that's 30% of not people who voted conservative, that's 30% of people who actually have purchased the conservative membership. A recent poll shows about 3 in 10, 30% say that they would like a different leader to lead us into the next election. This comes after a couple things. Number one is Poilievre's speech at the Canadian Strong and Free Network, and an overall reaction that it was okay. Seems to be the overall reaction from the public. And this also comes after a couple names one in particular started to make the rounds a couple weeks ago in conservative circles, but we'll get to that in a second. It's no secret that a lot of conservatives, after Poilievre's shift to a more moderate public persona, after his Joe Rogan appearance, after his Diary of a CEO appearance, and other podcasts, like Trigonometry as well, it's no secret that people, especially conservatives, are a little bit frustrated that the polls haven't swung as dramatically as they would have liked. And after the 3 by-elections where conservatives heavily underperformed, it's starting to seem like maybe Poilievre's leadership is a little shaky at the moment. But who are these candidates that are making their names known? Well, there's 2 most notable ones. Number one is Jason Kenney, but he's in retirement at the moment from 25 years in public service. People close to him say that it's not likely, but he's a pretty big name in conservative circles. But the second one, and this is the one people are talking about, is Mark Mulroney, the second born of Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. Apparently, he was interested in the job back in 2019 after Andrew Scheer resigned, but decided against it for basically unknown reasons. And after, a couple weeks ago, after a speech he made in the Changemakers Gala in Toronto, people have been saying that he looks the part, he sounds the part, and if he's interested, he'd probably get the job. But we don't know if he would ever challenge Poilievre outright for the leadership, or if he would just wait until the next conservative leadership race. And all that depends on whether Poilievre is going to win or lose the next election, or in a third possibility, I guess, that he could resign or maybe be forced out of his position, but that's just very unlikely. He clearly knows how to keep a team together. Seems unlikely that he would ever be in a position where he would need to resign. But if he loses the next election and he resigns and it goes to a leadership race, or maybe he fails the next leadership review and it goes to a leadership race, then in that case, it's very possible that Mark Mulroney could run. But I guess we'll have to just wait and see. And as always, I'll keep you guys as up to date as possible. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. God bless you guys, and have a good one.